Plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that would be America. And want to thank each and every one of you here in the Gulf Coast region and our friends in southern Arkansas and East Texas for being on board with us today. Well, I tell you, as we begin to wind down toward election night, it is beginning to heat up. No question about it, on the national scene. But first, I want us to take a close look at the local scene that will have national implications from Louisiana. And the one thing that I am certain that we want to do is, in fact, nominate and elect the very best candidate that we can elect to fill the seat of Senator David Vitter. One of them that is seeking that office, a friend of mine, and one that Freedom Works, Washington, D.C., which I'm a fellow, has endorsed, is in studio with me today, and his name is Congressman John Fleming. His lovely wife is here. Miss Cindy is here with me, and I want to thank you for being here with us as well. They're on their way to a We the People rally, and I tell you what, he is a man of the people and for the people. And, John, I want to welcome you back to the C.L. Bryant Show.
Well, CL, it is always a pleasure to be on with you. Thank you. You're a man of leadership and a man of freedom, a man who understands and appreciates this nation. And so it's always a pleasure being on. And also, I'm thrilled about the endorsement from Freedom Works. For those who don't really know what Freedom Works is, it's an organization based out of Washington, but it is really nationwide, right?
Oh, absolutely. We have the largest, yeah.
And it's, excuse me, it's grassroots activists.
Yeah.
It's just a way of organizing the grassroots, and so I'm thrilled about the endorsement.
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, John. Now, you are one of the founding members of the House Freedom Caucus, and of course, there's a natural progression that I believe from where you are right now to the Senate seat. Mm-hmm. Give our audience an idea of what the House Freedom Caucus is and what that is designed to do in Washington.
Well, thank you for that, CL. First of all, let me explain why we developed the House Freedom Caucus, because, you know, we all have our hearts broken when we elect someone who tells you they're going to do all the great things, they're going to cut spending, they're going to balance the budget, and all these great things. They get to Washington, and you find out they've been voting for all sort of crazy stuff, right? Well, the reason why that happens is oftentimes individuals, when they get to Washington, they're told they're going to be punished by leadership and by the greater group, the majority of their own conference, Republicans in this case, if they don't go along to get along. And on the other hand, they're told they could be covered up with all sorts of Washington money if they do go along. And when it comes to getting appointments to special committees and all of that goes to the people who go along. So what happens is they begin to work for the people in Washington rather than the people who elected them. And what we discovered was that they do this one by one in a very, very clever way. So we decided to band together as a group. I'm one of the co-founders, as you said. Brought together 9 of us as co-founders, created a group of 40 people, and it's kind of like a herd of antelopes. We sort of protect each other against the lions, if you will, at our feet. And so this way, if they try to come at us, we can take them on as a group, that being leadership and certain people who are not fighting for what's best for the people. And now we're connecting with outside organizations such as Freedom Works.
Let me say this, folks, to you about this. I'm in and out of Washington, D.C. a lot. Let me tell you something. It is a place where if you are not rooted and grounded in your core values and understand what your principles are, you can very easily lose your soul. John Fleming is a man that I know has not sold out. He has not sold his soul to the Washington establishment. And that's exactly why you hear him talking about an organization that he has founded like the House Freedom Caucus. It is one that is very important to the conservative movement in Washington, D.C. John, speak to this. A new person, a person who doesn't understand Washington, D.C.
Right.
People don't know him. He goes into Washington, D.C. Tell us about the seductive process.
Oh, it's very seductive. I mean, it's almost evil because you think about, the Bible tells us that though the seductor is going to be very beautiful and very attractive, but and that's what happens. You're told, oh gosh, we can help you raise money. I'm going to appoint you to the right committee and so forth. But then when that one moment comes that you're asked to vote for the omnibus bill or something that's going to pay for Planned Parenthood, or it's going to pay for the Syrian refugees, or the president's executive order, they're going to call upon you to vote for that, to get it passed. And, it's like the Bible. In the New Testament, it talks about the narrow gate and the narrow road and the wide gate and the wide road. So many take that wide gate and that wide road, CL, and then they're lost forever. They never come back. But there are a few of us who say, look, there are many things more important than being a member of Congress.
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's not willing to give up what I hold and what I cherish as the first principles of my nation. The Founding Fathers did not sell out. In fact, they were at risk of being hung by the British, and they stood in there. We don't have that kind of courage today. It becomes all about the person who's elected. It becomes about his or her job and not about yours. And that is something that I seek to change in the U.S. Senate.
The largest listening audience here in the Arklatex listen to the C.L. Bryant Show. And, folks, last night you heard me say what would make these 56 signers of our Constitution pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. It's freedom, and it is principle. It is core values and believing in the principles that has made America great. You're hearing someone who understands that. You cannot stand and defend America in these days and times if, in fact, you don't understand why they did it to begin with. I'm CL. We'll be right back.
Fumbling his confidence and wondering why the world has passed him by. Hoping that he's bent for more than arguments and failed attempts.
CL back on this Tuesday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport, and Bossier. Glad that you came along for this journey today. It is one that I'm sure you will not be disappointed in choosing to come along with me on, because one of those reasons is the congressman here in the 4th District of Louisiana, John Fleming, in with me, telling you why indeed it is necessary now in these perilous times, perilous political times that we find ourselves in America, why he is the best choice to succeed David Vitter in the senatorial seat. And John, you were saying, we were talking about how seductive sometimes, well, all the time, Washington can be, especially for somebody who's not rooted and grounded and know who they are.
Right.
There are a lot of people who go to Washington trying to find themselves.
Oh, yes.
And they seek elective office,
yes,
trying to find themselves. And one thing I've noticed about you is that you knew who you were when you went there.
Right.
You're the same guy.
Yes.
You haven't changed.
No, I haven't changed. And to be honest, going to Washington was never on my bucket list, CL. I mean, I wanted to be a lot of things. I wanted to be a doctor. I developed an aspiration to become a businessman one day. It never occurred to me, but in a moment of time, a series of events, it said to me, our nation needs some help, needs more leadership, particularly in health care. As a physician and a business owner who provides health care, I said, well, maybe there's a time for me to step up and do what our forefathers have done and so successfully. But here's the thing. Both parties, the establishment Democrats, establishment Republicans, it seems that they want one thing for our future, CL, and that is more government involvement in our lives. They want more control. They want to micromanage you, and I'm talking Republicans and Democrats.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
They want to talk. They want to diddle with your health care. They want to tell your banker when to lend you money and all of that. And that is a fundamental difference with me. I believe that you're way too smart for anybody to tell you how to live your life, CL.
Right.
And in fact, everyone in Louisiana. So I want to bring Louisiana conservative values to Washington. I'm tired of Washington coming to Louisiana and the rest of the country and dictating to people whether it's health care, banking, or even our education.
You know, it's interesting, John, that you would say that, because people, he's right. Government, if you allow them, they will tell you what type shoes to put on your children's feet. They really would like for you to have all the same type of mortgage, so they have an equal outcome in all of that, or even the type of iPhone, the type of phone that you are to choose. Government would want to dictate that to you.
Yes.
But now the idea of the republic was that we, the people, elect from among ourselves someone who would represent us in Washington, D.C., and then operate according to the rule of law, the Constitution.
Yes.
That is who John Fleming is. That's what he understands. And too many people who we elect to the office think we're sending them there to rule instead of govern on our behalf. John, that's what I understand and believe about you. Now, finally, I know you got to get to another venue, and I want to thank you very much for coming in, but I finally want to ask you this. Tell the folks, and folks, I want you to listen, tell the folks why you want this job. And I know that it is something. It is a job. This is a job. This isn't a glamour contest, folks.
Yeah.
We need people who understand they're going to Washington, not to some glamour show and to attend all the parties and all of that type, because there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
But we need someone who understands about the work that need to be done on behalf of the people. John, why do you want the office?
I want the job because, first of all, as I said before, I want to take Louisiana conservative values to Washington, get government out of people's lives day to day. But here's the thing. Today, Congress does not make the laws anymore. You don't have a voice in Washington. If you're unhappy with the law, it's most likely a regulation that was written by a bureaucrat someplace, and he's not going to take your call, and he gets highly paid to do what he does, and he has no accountability. So what I want to do is return accountability to government, and the only way to do that is to make senators and House members represent you once again, where if there's a rule or regulation or a law or something that you like or don't like or wish that we would put into place, that it's done so not by a bureaucrat who is unaccountable, but by your member of Congress being responsive to you. And so that's what I want to restore. The three branches of government, as you know, is judicial, executive, where the bureaucracy is, and the legislative, where Congress is. Congress has atrophied. It's barely on life support. It has almost no influence. The one power that's the major power we have, which is controlling the purse, we don't even do that anymore. And so, so all of that needs to change, and we can change it with the right president and the right members in the House and the Senate. So that's what I want to go there. I want to restore our democracy, our representative democracy, where we have three co-equal branches of government that are checks and balances on each other. That is not the case today, and that is what I'm committed to fixing.
95% of you know that what we are needing to do is elect the right president. We certainly need to elect the right senators and congressmen to offices in Washington, D.C. in case we don't get the right president. Are you hearing me? I know you are. Now, you've heard John Fleming tell you why. Let me say this to you.
1 minute.
These aren't just talking points that a politician is saying to you. Look at his record. He has lived what he says. He has done what he says. He has been a great representative for the people of this state in the capacity of congressman from the 4th District. I have every confidence that he will be the same guy in the senatorial seat held by a very good senator from this state, David Vitter. I think John Fleming is the man to sit in that seat this time, and as long as he wants to hold it. God bless you and keep you, John. Thank you for coming. What's the website?
It is FlemingForSenate.com, Fleming with one M, FlemingForSenate.com.
Fleming for Senate. Go there.
Awesome. Thank you.
CL on a Tuesday in the jewel cities of the Arklatex. And the news is out of Washington, D.C. from the Obama administration is that Obamacare, affordable health care will be exactly what we said it would be. Back when everyone who was against it and railing against Obama and being called racist and all kinds of other ugly names, when we were telling America what would happen if this took place, the Obama administration right now has just admitted we were right. But this is something that we also told America, is that the pain of Obamacare, the pain of the Affordable Health Care Act, would not really take effect until Obama himself left office. And again, we were right. But no, at the time when we were trying to sound the alarm, we were sounding the alarm. We were saying it as loudly and as clearly as we possibly could. But because Barack Obama was a perfect deception to and for from America, everybody and anybody who said anything against him, whether you were black or white, you had to be some kind of nut. You had to be some type of right-wing nut who felt as though, and the news media wanted everyone to believe as though you didn't like him because he's black. No, we didn't like him because we knew it would come to this. Now, that has nothing to do with race at all, does it? No, it doesn't. It had to do with common sense. It had to do with the same type of budget that you operate on in your house, I hope. And that is, you can't spend more than you bring in. And you ought to kick something aside for a rainy day. Obamacare made void that principle of economics altogether. Blew open the budget. $19 trillion in debt. And it's still going to be 25% more of a hike in premium cost come 2017. Why? Because the young people are not buying into it, and the people who are buying into it are sick, and in many cases old. Nothing wrong with being either, but you can't afford health care like Obamacare, affordable health care, if you are sick and old. And young people are saying, hey, look, I can't afford this. So, there you go. Now, the saddest words when we look at what is going on in this country right now, and by the way, I want to welcome our friends in Wilmington, North Carolina aboard, because we are on air there as well. I want to welcome all of you aboard. I'm sorry for that. I don't want to treat you like you're outside of the family or anything, because you're in. Just want to treat you like you're in. It's one of those times, folks, where it just battle fatigue. Been traveling a lot. All of you who listen to the show know I've been traveling a lot. Got back in late Sunday night and haven't really had any rest. And I don't think for the next 14 days that's going to happen much, because, well, we're in a warfare. And sometimes to defeat the Democrats, you have to defeat the Republicans. You know what? You have to defeat the Republicans. And what I mean by that is this. The saddest words I've heard Trump utter in the year that he's been running for president are these words: that he uttered just today. He said, if the Republicans would help me, I could win. Are you hearing me? The candidate, the nominee of the Republican Party, and I don't think any nominee of any parties, I don't think any that I can remember, and maybe I have to research this. Michelle's out tonight doing her Michelle thing, but just the same, I don't recall any candidate of any party, whether it's Ralph Nader or George McGovern, saying these words that I think are the saddest words a candidate of a party, a preacher of a church, a president of a company could say. And that is, if my folks would help me, I could win. If my folks would help me, I could win. And folks, I just don't understand this type of mentality. It angers me. Because now we're trying to get to Washington a congressman and a senator from this state. Louisiana is one of the few states. Listen, are you understanding that even Texas, they're saying to me that Texas is on the fringe of going to Hillary? Texas on the fringe of going to Hillary? Are you hearing me? Louisianians, we're not at that point yet, but we are in deep, deep turmoil here as a party. When the party nominee is saying to crowds that are massive, if my party would help me, I could win. Sad. I'll be back. CL back with you on this Tuesday, streaming live throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, America. And of course, we are housed right here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Texas, my home, Shreveport and Bossier City. Want to welcome you all aboard, as well as folks in the Gulf Coast, throughout the Gulf Coast. Want to thank you for being there too. Now, folks, when you think about justice reform, many times you think that that's someone who's running on a soft on crime type of platform. Not necessarily so. And here to talk about that, and we're going to get into that topic as well, is a gentleman by the name of Steve Hawkins. And Steve is the president of the Coalition for Public Safety. First time on the show. Steve Hawkins, welcome to the C.L. Bryant Show.
Pastor Brian, thank you for having me. Glad to be on.
Glad you're here. And I'm sure this is the first of many. And I want to start in with the Louisiana Angola prison video. Tell us now, when most people here in Louisiana, when we think about Angola, we don't think anything good. We don't think anything good. But we do know that there has been a lot of reform going on at Angola that has been good. Tell us about that from your perspective.
Sure. So Angola is running right now one of the most remarkable programs that I've seen, where inmates are being trained in auto mechanics, getting certifications, and really getting the kind of training and counseling and coaching that hopefully means that when they get out of prison, they'll be able to stay out of prison. And what also I find remarkable about it, Pastor Brian, is that you have some lifers who are helping in that coaching and in that training of younger inmates, men who know that they may not have an opportunity to get out in their lifetime or for a very long time, but they're sending a message to the younger men that they're working with and trying to help them turn their lives around. And that's remarkable, but it's a sign of what's needed. We need to see more efforts like that around the country. I'm
Absolutely
very happy that Angola is helping to pave the way.
Absolutely. You know, Steve, it sounds as though real prison reform, there's rehabilitation. Sounds like finally there's rehabilitation going on for prisoners who happen to find themselves in Angola. And everybody knows that if you find your way to Angola, you did something that you shouldn't have done. I mean, you really did something bad. And so now the future of justice reform. Tell us what justice reform is from your perspective.
Well, thank you. So I represent a group called the Coalition for Public Safety, and we've brought together some of the groups on the right in this country, conservative groups like Americans for Tax Reform and Freedom Works and the Faith and Free Freedom Coalition, but they are also right there with groups like the ACLU and others that normally folks who don't see eye to eye, but they all realize that we have to do something to reform our justice system. We have a system right now with 2.2 million people in prison, and we do a poor job of separating those folks who we need to fear, that we need to make sure our families are protected from, and those folks who we're just simply mad at. And Pastor, we have a lot of folks in prison we're just mad at.
Right.
And by that I mean the low-level drug offenders, people who really would benefit more from treatment. Clearly, we have operated with a one-size-fits-all approach, and we need to get away from that. And when I look at the federal system, we have 50% of the people in federal prison are there for nonviolent offenses.
One of the things the audience may be asking, Steve, is this: how cost effective, and is it cost effective? Does it make more sense to do the reform, and does that save us money? I guess that's the question.
Oh, absolutely, because right now we're spending $80 billion a year on a government program that fails 40% of the time. And you know, Pastor, we end up just seeing folks recycle back again and again and again. If we put the money into the programming and the education needs and some of the efforts that then will give people a chance to actually stop that revolving door, that saves money down the road. And you know,
Yeah.
it's beginning to happen. States are beginning to do
To
that.
turn around.
And
Let me ask you this about recidivism, because you mentioned it. You mentioned it. And there are several bills in Congress right now, sentencing reform bills, Recidivism Risk Reduction Act, and also Second Chance Reauthorization. I want to talk to you about all those, and I want you to stay with me through the break. But let's start now, if we can, talking about recidivism. Tell the folks what that is and why it is important to us to pay attention to what you're doing there in Angola, because evidently that does slow down the rate of recidivism. What is recidivism?
Right. So when somebody goes to prison and they get out, the thinking is this person rehabilitated? Will they be able to go on with their lives and not find themselves offending again and going back to prison? Often what happens is people end up offending again. They'll come out of prison with no skills, limited opportunities, and they return to old habits.
Mm-hmm.
And we're realizing that if we actually can train people, give them an opportunity, work with them. People will make slight mistakes coming out, but can we catch folks in time, help give them the right kind of coaching that they need on the outside? And we are finding that will reduce the number of people who end up finding themselves going back to prison.
Steve, I want you to hold that thought right there. We're on with Steve Hawkins, who is the president for the Coalition for Public Safety. We're going to give you the website where you can go to and how to get in contact with him when we return. We want to talk more about how justice need reforming in our country, how that affects you. I'm CL. Be right back. TheCL. Tuesday in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, streaming live throughout the great nation of America. And on the line with me is someone who is, in fact, doing all that he can with the Coalition for Public Safety to make a difference in our society. His name is Steve Hawkins, and he's there in Washington, D.C. Steve, let me ask you about the website now before we get back into conversation.
Sure. So for listeners, we have a website, coalitionforpublicsafety.org. If you go there, you'll find all kinds of information about programs that work to keep people from going to prison or returning to prison. There's information about bills that are pending in Congress, and also just information about what's working in the states and the remarkable efforts that are happening in several states to reduce their prison population.
And there is a bipartisan move. Now, you know that I'm a senior fellow with Freedom Works there in Washington, D.C., up there a lot. But you also mentioned that the ACLU is on board. And, folks, let me tell you something. That is rarefied air right there, because Freedom Works and the ACLU seldom, if ever, see eye to eye on anything. But this is a bipartisan type of common sense approach to what's going on in our nation right now as far as justice reform is concerned. Now, Stephen, speak to our audience about this. Now, you have a guy who is a drug user. He's not a drug dealer. You know, he's not moving, as they say, weight. He's not moving any of that type of thing. Why does it make sense then not to throw him in jail with a murderer?
Right, because I'll start with one point there, which has to do with public safety, because we see it all the time. If we end up putting nonviolent offenders with violent offenders, what happens is folks come out of prison more hardened. You know, we end up taking people who you almost graduate from criminal university.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because you end up learning and doing things that will guarantee that you will probably end up back in prison. So here's what we should do with that nonviolent drug offender. And I call that, Pastor, the folks who we're upset with. Because they've been doing drugs and engaging in probably petty thefts and all of that. So what do we do with that person? We need to keep them out of prison. Why send them to prison for 3, 4, or 5 years, which is very costly, where they're not getting any of the treatment that they really need? Find ways to keep that person out of prison, get them into drug treatment, get them into some intervention programs that will help them get back on track. And that's cheaper, it's more effective. We need to preserve prison for the people who want to do society harm, right? I mean,
Right.
But what we don't want to do is we don't want to destroy people's lives, destroy their families, aid in them being disconnected from their children, which then creates its own cycles of poverty and generations that I'm used to going to a prison. Find a way that we can work with those folks and create some opportunities.
Now, you have something here. It's H.R. 3406, I believe that is, Second Chance Reauthorization Act,
Yes.
H.R. 3406. Now, you got the second chance here. Now, what happens with the second chance?
Sure. So this is actually a reauthorization. So it's been working. It's passed the floor. We're optimistic that Congress will pass it again. It expands job training in prisons. It creates some federal dollars that states are able to utilize, and that's proving effective. And it really is the notion that people deserve a second chance, that we all should not be remembered for our worst deed in life, that we all have the capacity for human redemption, and that is the essence of the Second Chance Act, to create these job opportunities. Let me say, related to that, Pastor, is that
Yeah.
We have companies like Koch Industries and others that are voluntarily giving people opportunity.
I was going to
wasn't-
ask you that. I was going to ask
Yeah,
you that
okay.
because there are too many companies, I think, that have their ears and their hearts closed to giving someone who is sincerely sorry and somebody who is sincerely wanting to make a second go at it. They won't give them a chance because of that felony, because they have that on their record. And so there are companies, that's what I was going to ask you. There are companies, is there a referral to those? How does that work?
Well, in some situations there are, groups like ours can certainly give people information on companies that have made it clear that they welcome people, returning citizens, as we call folks coming out of prison, that they welcome their applying for a job. There was a time when there would be something on the application which you'd have to check a box to say whether you had been convicted. That is, companies we are seeing more companies willing to remove that box, and we just want to keep encouraging it. So when we see a big set of companies like Koch Industries, with Georgia Pacific and others taking really the lead, it's commendable.
Yeah.
I just hope that continues, because I think what people find is that these sometimes are your best workers.
If they're sincere, they truly are, because they have something to prove. Because they do, and then once they prove it, folks, and I love what you're saying, because that's what my life over the last 30 years have been about, is finding ways to show people how to be redeemed, not only spiritually but in society. As a pastoral counseling is what my discipline is, and let me tell you something. There have been so many good people over the years who really wanted to try it and do it again, but there was very little opportunity to try and get them on the path. Steve Hawkins, I got to have you back, man. This is a huge conversation. Listen, God bless you and keep you. Fight the good fight. I know you will, because you are. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Pastor. All right. God bless.
I'll be back. I'm CL.
Once was a sweet thing, baby. Held out a love in her hand. But now I reach to kiss your lips. My touch don't mean a thing.
CL, back with you on this Tuesday here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex. Sometimes, in order to beat the Democrats, you must first beat the Republicans. Before I start talking with you about that, I have somebody on the line that I met for the first time on Wednesday night. He's a regular caller to the show. Jay and I were talking about this. Stephen, we were glad to see you there, man. And you're one of those guys who you have this image in your head of how they look and how they are. You took us both by surprise, brother. I got to tell you that much. But I'm glad that you called. What's on your mind, friend?
1 second, Theo. Let me finish this call. You have to go in here. Sorry, Theo.
I got him and his
Had to
friend
handle
on the show.
some
What's going on, man? What's on your mind?
Man, what a great subject you just brought up.
What
Look,
yeah.
Oh my God.
What do you like about that? What do you like about that, Socialist Stephen?
No, about I'll tell you what. Last night I watched something on Netflix called The 13th Amendment.
Mm-hmm.
There's a show on.
Mm-hmm.
It is amazing. So you know how I've heard you say it many times. I've heard conservatives say it many times that it was the welfare system that has destroyed the black family.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, you disagree with
I
that.
did not realize
Go ahead.
it was our justice system.
Well, in modern times, because, see, in modern times, Stephen, that may be the case because the penal system, in too many cases, has become a plantation system.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Theo. Look, Nixon doubled the prison population.
Yeah.
Reagan did. Clinton did. Bush, it's 2.3 million people in prison. Highest incarceration rate in the world, in a nation of freedom and liberty.
Absolutely right. And check this out. And folks, understand, I'm very tough on crime and want to be tough on crime, but look at America does incarcerate more people than any other country in the world. And Louisianians, my people, right here in my home state, we incarcerate more people than anyone else in the country here in Louisiana, which means that we incarcerate more people than anybody else in the world.
And you know what Nixon started it off with right after the civil rights got signed and all of that? You know what Nixon started it off with? I am going to be the law and order president.
But now this is one thing that you do need. Now you need the law and order. This is what the problem is, Stephen.
It's cold.
No, it's not. Let me tell you what the problem is, Stephen. The problem is there are people who will not take personal responsibility for their actions, whether they're drug users or not. That's still a personal choice. But what we're saying here, and I don't want you to get me wrong, I'm not for being lenient on crime. I am for sensible sentencing.
I know you're not.
Yeah, I want to be sensible with sentencing them, though. That's the problem.
But CL, when they listed the corporations involved in our justice system and how much they make, and their lobbying group that makes the laws to put people in prison, I was sick. I was sick. It is all a scam to make money.
It's a design, no doubt about it. And let me tell you something that you may not be aware of. There are focus groups out there. There are groups out there who actually can track a kid right now who is in the 4th grade, and they are planning prison beds for him.
Yes.
Right now. That is a fact. That is a fact.
And now that we're on the radio and we're talking about it and people are looking, they're backtracking. Guess what these companies got coming next? Guess what their plan is next? They're going to start shutting down some prisons because we're looking at it.
Yeah.
Guess what they want to do? They want to put GPS rings on people.
Well, hey,
have them in prison at home.
That's a part of the times that we live in, Stephen. If you're driving a car that's a 2011 or above, they know where you are anyway. Okay, GPS is just a part of our life. But this is the thing that I'm saying. This is the thing I'm saying. Listen to me. I'm going to let you talk. This is the thing that I'm saying, Stephen. Don't put yourself in the situation where you have to go through that. That is the best advice, and that is the best way to live your life, is not to come in contact with that.
I have been blessed by God to never have seen the inside of a jail or a prison.
Bless you.
Just blessed. Okay? Just blessed and lucky.
Well, no, you made choices. You
Yeah.
made personal choices not to go there. And this is what I have been telling young men for many, many years now, is that does boil down to what did you do to get in this situation? And invariably, listen, somebody's going to say, well, it's because I'm black. No, no. There was a time when things were much worse for black people in this country, Stephen, and black folks were not a majority per numbers, population wise,
But CL,
in jail.
there are people in jail for life because of mandatory sentencing.
I agree. That's wrong.
Possessed
That's wrong.
some drugs.
For drugs. But there was a time here in Louisiana when if you were caught with marijuana, you were going to jail for a long time. A long time.
Brother, you know what this is all about. You don't want to admit it. You know what it's about. Watch the show. Everybody watch the show, 13th Amendment.
13th Amendment.
Amazing.
I'm going to check it out, man. Listen, I want to thank you for calling, brother.
All right. Okay.
Talk to you soon.
All right.
That's Stephen, Socialist Stephen, as he's known around here. But, folks, listen, crime needs to be dealt with swiftly and certainly. In other words, yes, there need to be certain punishment for crime breaking the laws. But there are some crimes like a drug user who is not violent, but he's a drug user who goes to jail for a long time, that we really do need to rethink that, because that guy or girl, especially girls are beginning to go now, who are costing us a lot of money. Now, listen, I know that there are your advocates out there like Al Sharpton and so forth who are saying that this did not become a situation or a problem until you started seeing more white kids going to jail. My thing is, it's a problem because there are people who are not responsible who are going to jail. Always has been. I'll be right back. CL back on this Tuesday with you. And I tell you what is a hot topic. The lines have lit up. And, folks, let me tell you something. People have always gone to jail. And then in this country, it's been mostly white people because there's more of you. But I can tell you this, what I know from statistics. The black marriage rate, when it declined, the black incarceration rate went up. Oh, you're not hearing me. The marriage rate among whites, when it declined, the white incarceration rate went up. What does that tell us? It tells us that the breakdown of the family leads in many ways to crime. On the line with me now is Joe. Joe, thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind, brother?
KCL.
Hey.
I always notice guys like Stephen, they're more communists like Stephen. They're more worried about somebody that's in jail for some unlawful reason than they are about somebody's religious rights who haven't broken the law.
Right. Right. And you know what, Stephen?
Why is that?
You know what, Joe? You hit the nail on the head, because religion right now, those of us with a moral compass are in jeopardy of becoming the bad guys, and people may think I'm crazy for saying this. They may think that you're crazy for saying it, but we're in jeopardy of being lawbreakers. Stephen, Joe, we're in jeopardy of becoming lawbreakers because our faith is under attack. And it is one of those things where people are not paying much attention to it. What do you say?
Well, that's true. I mean, these leftists. You know, this country is turned into a cesspool because criminals have rights now. You know, regardless if they broke the law, they have rights. And you know, guys like Stephen, they're more worried about that than people who haven't broken the law.
Hillary wants them to be able to vote. And with that type of voting block, I'm talking about a prison block. Think about this, Joe. What if you had a voting block in prison? You know who they're voting for. They're not voting for conservatives, for the most part. They're not doing that.
It's ugly, man. What the left is doing is ugly.
And listen, we had better do something. We better do something real quick. Listen, thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for calling, brother. You know what, folks? I want to go back to the point that I was making. People have always gone to jail because there have been laws here for 240 years in this country, and even before they ever came here, wherever human beings have been, there's always been some reason to punish folks for doing what was against the societal norms of the culture. Okay, so people in one way or another have always gone to jail. Sometimes people lost their lives for it, whether they were in Africa, France, Italy, wherever. They've always gone to jail. That's the point. In America, and this is the point that is really missed, even though I know the progressive liberals don't want to per person, the rate of black incarceration is higher. That is true. Per person, you know, as far as the population of a country is concerned, the black incarceration rate is higher. That is true. But folks, I am black, and let me tell you something. There is a reason for that. And I know that I'm going to make a lot of people mad who perhaps are black like me. But everybody is not being targeted by the police. In fact, there's a study out right now that debunks the idea that black people, black men in particular, are being targeted by the police for crime. Usually, and mostly white people are in jail. Okay, that's a fact too. But when you look at the breakdown of family, and then you go back to the 30s and the 20s in this country, go back to the 1800s, right after slavery in this country, guess what? Black folks were not going to jail. Do you know why? Because during those decades that I have mentioned, the black marriage rate at oftentimes was higher than the white marriage rate. And because that black man tried to do everything he could to feed his family, as menial as that work may have been, it kept him out of trouble and kept him in the house. It kept him taking care of his family. And that kept him out of jail. There is a direct correlation to the breakdown of the family, white or black, and the numbers increasing of people who are going to jail. When you look at 72% of black babies born in the inner city don't have a man in that house. They're born out of wedlock. When you look at 72% of those children that are born out of wedlock, then according to what I have just laid out for you, it is a recipe. It is a formula for someone who is on their way to jail. There is a reason why I believe God wanted the family to be a nuclear type of thing where children had nurturing. It kept them out of trouble. You could ask most of the men incarcerated right now what happened to them. Nearly 85% of them did not have an intact family. We can argue about the social, ills and all that kind of thing. But men, let me talk to you when I come back. I'm CL. Don't go anywhere.
Black, why you never see bright colors on my back? And why does my appearance seem to have a somber tone? Well, there's a reason for the things that I have on. I wear the black for the poor and the beaten down.
CL. Back with you, headed for the home stretch. After the top of the hour, Noah Wall, Freedom Works Grassroots National Coordinator, will be here with me, but I want to continue now with this topic, personal responsibility. That is why, really, we need to vote for the right presidential candidate. Now, I'm not going to try to make any arguments and so forth, because this thing is, I mean, we have right now, today, today, 2 weeks from today, we will be voting for the President of the United States, the new President of the United States, whoever that may be. We'll be voting for that person. I certainly hope, I'm still hoping, that is Donald J. Trump, because I think you will have, and including those who may be right now contemplating doing something that will get them thrown in jail, I think absolutely you will have a better example of how to succeed in America than you would under Hillary. I think Hillary wants to make everyone she possibly can a mascot, especially if you are, and Jeff Landry was talking about it last night, a protected class. A class that, you know, is protected. Woman, black, minority. And, you know, this is something that I want to say to men. Men. You heard me give out the birth rates. In the white community overall in America, birth rates outside of marriage are approaching 50%, half the population. And you can believe it or not, that's exactly why you're going to have to build new prisons. You can believe it or not. White or black, you got to build new prisons. You're seeing it everywhere you turn, this level of crazy that cannot continue. And so there is a direct reason why those prisons are going to have to be built, and that's because some man, listen to me, is not taking personal responsibility for his offspring. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Somewhere there has been a breakdown in the desire to be responsible. And the end result of not being responsible does not necessarily affect the irresponsible. It affects the seed and the offspring of the irresponsible. I hope you're hearing me. I'll say it again. Irresponsibility on the part of a man or even a woman, but particularly men, because women can't really have the babies without you. Okay? I guess they can these days, you know, but not in the inner city are they going that direction as far as being inseminated and having a child that way, because they can take care of it on their own. That's not what I'm talking about. In the natural course of things, you know how children get here. And in the natural course of things also, you know what has been the tradition of bringing an offspring into the world, and that is taking care of it, feeding it. But when government becomes daddy, then government also makes a place for that offspring of yours when it acts up. And it is called the penal system, jail. And if the child had a father at home who was backing up that mother when he said, boy, you better, or girl, you better do what I say, you'd have less of that individual, of that group in jail. It used to be that way. I'll say it again, that back in the 30s, the 20s, and you can go on back to the 1800s after slavery, when the black family was well intact for the most part in this country, black men were not going to jail. When the black marriage rate was higher at times than the white marriage rate, black men didn't go to jail. And now that that type of thing has become a trend in America, where the whole family of America, white or black, whoever it is, Christian or heathen, is not going, is not intact. Now you're having a higher incarceration rate among all peoples. It is directly related to the family. Crime is directly related to the strength of family. Now, sure, of course, I've known a many kid from a good family, and like I tell you, many good kids from a good family that went to jail. But that is an exception to the rule. And I tell you something else, an exception to, because usually if it came from a good family, usually that good family is able to keep that kid from being in there for a long time. Oh, yeah. After the top of the break, we're going to talk about more about justice reform with Noah Wall. On the other side of the break, he is the grassroots director, national grassroots director for Freedom Works, the largest grassroots organization boasting nearly 6 million activists on the ground around the nation. When I return, Noah Wall, Freedom Works. CL. Back with you on this Tuesday here in the Jewel Cities of the Architect, streaming live throughout the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known, and that is the U.S. of A. Joining me is one of our native sons, one of her native sons, Noah Wall, who is the national grassroots director for an organization that I'm very fond of, senior fellow with, and that is Freedom Works there in Washington, D.C., the largest grassroots organization in the country, nearly boasting 6 million activists on the ground. And Noah, you're Lord of the Flies with all of them. I want to welcome you back to the C.L. Bryant Show, brother. How you been?
I'm doing great. You know, I always love being on your show.
Thank you so much for being here, Noah. And on behalf of the citizens of Louisiana, I want to thank Freedom Works for endorsing. We just had John Fleming right here in studio with me for endorsing Congressman John Fleming of the 4th District here in Louisiana, my good friend, and he has been endorsed officially now by Freedom Works. Noah, why did you make the move?
Well, you know, I tell you what, CL, I think that Congressman Fleming has one of the most exceptional records in Congress, and I think that he really is what we need in Washington, now in the U.S. Senate. We need him more than ever there, regardless of what happens in the presidential election in a couple of weeks. We need men and women like Congressman Fleming in Washington, D.C., doing the Lord's work there, and I can't think of a better candidate, to really champion. So we're really proud to endorse him. I think that, we really hope that we can turn out our activists in Louisiana to support him.
We're going to do it. And Noah, one of the things that he talked about is when someone comes to Washington, D.C., one thing, if they're new, they don't know anything about it. They don't understand how seductive it can be, and they can actually wind up trading their soul for a seat on a committee. And we talked about the House Freedom Caucus. You know a lot about what that is about and why it is in force right now on the Hill. Tell our audience from your perspective about the House Freedom Caucus and its function. Absolutely.
The House Freedom Caucus is the is really our last line of defense in Washington, D.C. We have a few good senators. Not too many, unfortunately, not enough. But we have about 40-odd members of the House who are willing to stand up to leadership. These are the people that got rid of Speaker Boehner. These are the people who are defending our Constitution. These are the people who are doing what folks in Louisiana hope when they vote for a member to either the Congress or Senate. I mean, that's what these guys are doing. They're doing a tremendous job, and you know what? It comes at great cost. These congressmen in the members of the House Freedom Caucus have real blowback from this. Leadership tries to take away their fundraising. They tell PACs they can't support them. They make it so that it is almost impossible for these guys to raise money in Washington, D.C. so they can get reelected and do what they promised their constituents they were going to do.
Absolutely.
So, that is absolutely, why we need these guys and why we need to support members like Congressman Fleming, who was the founding member of the House Freedom Caucus.
And folks, you need to know that regardless of how this presidential election turns out, there is work for us to do as Americans to preserve this great republic. No, a little bit earlier, I had on Steve Hawkins, who is with the Coalition for Public Safety. We were talking about another topic that is very near and dear to the work that Freedom Works is engaged in right now. And it's also something that I am very interested in seeing some changes in, and that is justice reform in this country, sentencing reform in this country. And he was saying that his organization works closely with ACLU and Freedom Works. And in this context, we very seldom hear Freedom Works and ACLU mentioned in the same breath at all. But in this context, it seems like it's a no-brainer that it's bipartisan. Give us your take on justice reform.
Absolutely. The left is, I like to think of them as like a broken clock. They're right twice a day. Well, sometimes not that often, but they're occasionally they're occasionally right on something. And in this particular case, we do agree that there are over the last couple decades, what has happened in many areas across the country is we have laws on the books that are not just. And as a free people, when we encounter rules and regulations that are not just, it's our duty and responsibility to correct them. And what we're talking about are making sure that issues like civil asset forfeiture. I know, CL, you and I have talked about this a lot, where we have police and law enforcement confiscating people's property when they're not charged, not convicted or even charged with a crime. And it's simple things like that we have to fix. Things that are putting people, good law-abiding people, depriving them of their property is something that we just have to solve. And it's we're fortunate to agree with certain bipartisan and
right.
Across the ideological spectrum. So we'll work when anyone agrees with us, CL.
Absolutely right. And Noah, I want you to stay with me through the break, because when I come back, I want you to offer a word of encouragement to our people who, some of them, feel tired and beat up in this election process here this time in 2016. Tell us, I want you to say when we come back, why we should trudge on and why we should become a part of the Freedom Works movement. I'm CL. This is the CL Bryant Show, on with the National Grassroots Director for Freedom Works Washington, D.C., Noah Wall, when I return. CL. I want to welcome aboard all of our friends in Wilmington, North Carolina, where we're now on the air there in Wilmington, North Carolina. I want to thank you for coming along with us for this ride there at 1180 WLTT in Wilmington. And on the line with me is a friend and one of my fellows there in Washington, D.C. He is the grassroots director, national grassroots director for FreedomWorks there in Washington, D.C. And, hey, Noah, before we get into that, I'm seeing these pictures of Adam, who's from Cleveland, of course, and he's all dressed up in this Indian garb. What's going on with him?
Well, he's from a very unfortunate city in Ohio that I think before this year hasn't seen any sports championship of any kind since, I don't know, since before the
70
Depression,
years.
something like that.
He's all over himself. I got to call him or something. But anyway, we're praying that he keeps his sanity. But just the same, Adam Brandon, he's the leader. He's our fearless leader, the CEO of FreedomWorks. Noah, as we travel, you and I travel a lot throughout this land, carrying the great news of freedom and FreedomWorks in this country and liberty. Lower taxes, the rule of law, and, of course, more freedom. But in this cycle of the election cycle that we've just come out of, I'm seeing so many of our people who seem fatigued, and they seem like they're wanting to throw their hands up. And Noah, tell them why we need to trudge on. I mean, we have the Supreme Court, we have the senators, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Please share with our audience from your grassroots perspective why it is necessary to get engaged now instead of retreating.
Absolutely. It's certainly hard, and it's been a tough election cycle, a tough few election cycles for us. But you know what? I'm optimistic, and the folks that I talk to, around the country, I think we have great cause for optimism. If you look at the next generation of leaders in our country, from a political perspective, we're talking about men and women who hold state and local office, folks that have decided to run and represent their communities at the local level, and if you look at state legislatures around the country, they are overwhelmingly conservative. They're not perfect by any means. A lot of them, they're just as corruptible as folks in Washington, D.C., but we have a great majority in those state legislatures. Our bench is so much stronger than that of the Democrats and the left, and and we're winning. We are actually winning battles. Earlier this year in Tennessee, they had great success repealing their state income tax. They've made other progress this year. We are seeing, states like Arizona pass conservative reforms. I mean, we on the state level, we are doing tremendous things. And you have to remember, the states are the laboratories of democracy. The states are, were envisioned by our founders as being an essential component of our republic, and I think that what we're seeing is on the state level we are absolutely winning. We are absolutely having a strong impact. Even states that are not super conservative, like Pennsylvania, are seeing. We're on the verge of passing awesome pension reform legislation that could, if this does end up passing. Could be, the largest pension reform effort in the history of the country. And, we are seeing movement like that. And I see the opportunities that we have next year and, and going forward. And I am tremendously optimistic that we can make really awesome change that'll convince people that we need to, move in a conservative direction.
Absolutely. And folks, if you have not gone to the website freedomworks.org, go there and check out what FreedomWorks is all about. And Noah, I want to thank you for being on with me today. The fight is before us, folks. Engage in it. Let us mobilize the masses of people in this republic in order to bring about that new breed, that new crop of leaders that will be necessary for us to move forward as Americans. Noah Wall, God bless and keep you, man. Tell all the gang there. I guess I'll be seeing you soon, but in any event, I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, CL.
Yeah, that's Noah Wall, the National Grassroots Director for FreedomWorks in Washington, D.C. And, folks, let me tell you, don't you get discouraged. I know so many of you are wanting to find a reason to quit. Don't. We have to continue to live. You do understand that. We have to continue to move forward. Being stagnant will not suffice in this fight. And understand it is a fight. In fact, folks, this is a war. We're engaged in warfare. And that better be the way we approach it from this point on. I'm CL. Be back to close it out in just a minute. CL. Well, we're going to close it out here today, and I want to close it out reminding you I went to vote today. Yeah, Jane and I went down to our residential place in DeSoto Parish, the seat there in Mansfield, where we went to the voter registrar's office and we cast our votes for president and senator and congressman and a couple of little amendments and so forth that they had on the ballot. You got to do that. You have to make up your mind that you're going to go and engage in the process. The stakes are high. You heard Noah Wall talking about it. You heard Steve Hawkins talking about it. And you heard before them Congressman John Fleming, my friend Congressman John Fleming, talking about it here. The stakes in America right now are high. And I want to remind you of this. Now, even though the progressive liberals and even some Republicans are painting a picture of doom and gloom if, in fact, Hillary Clinton wins the election, still fight on. They're painting a picture of doom and gloom, some of them, if Donald Trump wins the election. But that's who I voted for. I don't care. I'm telling you. I'm riding that train all the way to the White House or to wherever it stops. And I hope it's the White House, because I believe we'll have a better shot at preserving what we know takes us forward than if, in fact, she, Hillary Clinton, becomes the President of the United States. So at this point, 2 weeks out, actually now 13 days out from the presidential election, this is no time to quit. It is time to move forward because, folks, quite frankly, when our nation was being founded, the prospects of liberty and freedom were much, much bleaker, more bleak than they were, much more bleak than they are now. Oh, yeah. And so we should at least try to defend what has already been paid for. Keep that in mind. Don't forget that. Well, I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform around the globe who defend our right to speak our mind. And until I'm able to talk to you again, I'm CL, and may God bless and keep you all.
Freedom alive, and to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side, and the bond will never be torn. For those who wear the uniform,